Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and exiting the military is a significant milestone. It can be daunting for those who've spent years in uniform. That's why today's guest, Chad Hufford, is someone you want to hear from. As a financial advisor and the founder of Veritas Wealth Management, Chad helps families across the country build secure financial futures, but his expertise goes far beyond numbers. He deeply understands discipline, resilience, and intentionality, qualities that resonate with the veteran community. Chad may not have served in the military, but his approach to financial planning is built on principles that align with the veteran mindset: accountability, preparedness, and long term strategy. A best selling author of Forging Financial Freedom and Dave Ramsey's Smart Vestor Pro, he teaches financial independence and emphasizes the importance of fitness, faith, and purpose in life after service. As he often says, retiring to something is far more crucial than retiring from something. Advice nearly every transitioning service member should take to heart. We're going to explore financial strategies, mindset shifts, and how to build a life of real abundance today. Chad, brother, welcome to the show.
Adam, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the introduction. That's one of the best I've heard. So, let's
I get
get
that a
rolling.
lot here, man.
No, it's good. That was good.
Dude. So your story highlights a lot of foundational principles that are so critical for success. And can you just start by telling us a bit about where you grew up and what some of the biggest influences that shaped your character and work ethic, particularly in terms of discipline and resilience, are?
So I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. Still live here. My dad actually came up in the Navy on his way to Vietnam, and Anchorage, Alaska was as close as he ever got. So I think he was basically, without being promised, because let me just back up a little bit. So my dad grew up in Iowa and was on his way to Da Nang and broke his leg playing football just days before he was supposed to ship out. Devastated him. And so they reset everything. He was supposed to basically he fought to get cleared, get back over, and then I think they basically told him, like, you're they sidelined him, and he ran his way up the chain of command. Eventually, I'll just make this real quick, wrote a letter to the governor. That did not go well with the whole chain of command. But long story short, he was basically promised, I think he was trying to get to Chulai, was where he was trying to get to, and he got papers that said Sea Orders, Elmendorf, Alaska. And he spent the first 6 months here trying to somehow still get over there, and never did. Of course, we're grateful now that he didn't. But that's how I got here. Is my dad's indirect path to Vietnam that never happened, and grew up running around chasing stuff in the woods. It was phenomenal place. It's not the easiest place to live, but man, it's still the Wild West up here, and I love it.
I've got a big beef with the Anchorage. When I came home from Afghanistan, our plane broke in Anchorage, and we were stuck in that damn airport for 2 or 3 days. I can't remember. It all kind of blends together. What I have beef with is the way that they treated us at that airport. They just locked us in the terminal and wouldn't let us go anywhere, wouldn't feed us, nothing. It was just like we were like sequestered by ourselves, like we had some kind of disease or poison or something, and it was really, really weird.
Wow. Well, that's a lot worse than weird. So you're interned, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my goodness.
It was like, man, I can't remember. Like I said, dude, this has been the end of 2012, so over 13 years ago. But coming home, the airplane broke, and having gone through flight training and all of that on the other side, like I kind of understand better now, like the maintenance problem that they had, and there's just a part they couldn't get for several days. However, they didn't bring us food, they didn't bring us water. It was just like, get off the plane, stay in this terminal, you're locked down here. I think we were there for 18 hours before they finally moved us to a hotel. And then the Army, in its infinite wisdom, here's a bunch of dudes that just came back from deployment. There's 30 of us, and we're going to put you in a hotel where you're looking down at a bar, but you can't go anywhere. And I was like, well, this is not great. And it was cold, man. It was so cold.
Well, the cold, I think that's par for the course.
Can't do anything about it.
But the rest of that, man, I'm so sorry to hear about that. And we're better than that. Anchorage is better than that. But next time you come up here, get out of Anchorage, though. Get out of Anchorage and explore around, because it's there's places up here that just you can't touch it anywhere else in the
Oh,
US.
for
So
sure.
rugged, so
Big
raw.
fan of Meat Eater and Steven Rinella. I know he's up in Alaska all the time, and so I
Yeah.
just see, and I'm just like, man, like that is the last like great outdoors that we have. Like it's truly just insurmountable.
It is, and it's what's cool about it too, and cool, but also sobering is, I mean, there's places where you get no reception, you you even with a sat phone, it can be dicey, and you just get reminded, like, nature is relentless,
You're
and it
right.
might be 2025, but when you're out there, it's like you can go dark ages really fast. So, I mean, it's the respect for that is important, but also just the awe of like being in a place where you're looking around like, man, I don't know if another human has been right over there.
Right.
And
That's wild.
that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
That's wild. So, speaking about the great outdoors and growing up in Anchorage, you probably spent a lot of time outdoors, which I now know is a big key to overall mental wellness when you go through any kind of big life transition. And you have a background with an emphasis on athletics, nutrition, performance psychology. Your path wasn't necessarily military service, but the fields that you kind of came up in demand incredible discipline and a strategic mindset. How did these experiences, the great outdoors of Anchorage, growing up around the financial industry, how did they shape you and prepare you for your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, it's interesting you phrase it like that, Adam, because um, when I was in my mid 20s, I actually was doing some contract work with the 509th up here, preparing airborne soldiers for deployment. And we were doing a lot of tactics and working on um, behaviors. And what it really showed me was what I learned in that was the difference in mindset, because you work with some soldiers who had it and some that didn't, and the ones that didn't, you're teaching them the same skills, but it's a completely different experience. And that really showed me. I grew up in athletics. I grew up playing sports, and I knew from my own journey that how precious the right mindset is, because it's really hard to act right if you're not thinking right. And you can do it, you can fake it for a little while, but when the excrements hit the oscillator, you're
Yep.
gonna break down to your basics. And if your basics are fundamentally busted at the mindset level, all the schooling, the tact, all that stuff doesn't matter. So I'll just back up a little bit from there, because I was asked this the other day, like, oh, have you just always been disciplined? Like, no, discipline and resilience, those are like muscles you have to work. And some people will say, like, I'm just not that disciplined, so I'm not going to go do this, or I'm not going to do that. It's kind of like saying, I'm not that strong, so I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to wait until I get stronger, then I'm going to go to the gym.
We're on the same page, man. We're on
Doesn't
the
work
same
like
page.
that,
It
man. Doesn't
doesn't.
work like that.
And you're the first person I've had come on who really discipline is the foundation of everything that I do. It's like the one skill or fallback or value that, in my opinion, it's always been with me. I've never lost it. It won't fail me if I lean into it. It only gets stronger, right? And so you're the first person that's come on and really phrased it that way. Like there are muscles that have to be exercised, and you cannot develop them if you don't practice them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are waiting for that to somehow develop. And I'm going to start doing all these things when I start having more discipline. And like, that's how I use the gym analogy. It's crazy when I say, like, you laughed, but when it comes to discipline in other areas, like, that's how we think about it. So just to give you my backstory, I shared this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Um, when I was, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old, I was playing. So this is Alaska for you. Mount Spur erupted and dumped ash all over Anchorage. So I was at football practice when this happened, and they canceled football, and for like 2 or 3 days. And well, they trying to clean up the ash, and it didn't get cleaned up very well. But this is back in like the 80s or early 90s. We didn't really care about our health. This is before people worried about kids and feelings
Everything,
and all that stuff. Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Feelings and allergies; those things hadn't been invented yet. But um, but you needed a certain amount of hours in practice to be able to play in a game. So what our coaches did is we had two 2 or 3 like back to back to back 8-hour practices. And Adam, it just broke me mentally. Again, I'm 11 or 12 years old, and I was big. I stopped growing when I was 11, so I was 5'10" and 11, and I had size as an advantage, but I didn't have to work that hard. I could excel with a minimal amount of effort, and these coaches were tough. It was still looking back, I'm like that was a lot. The stuff they put us through, for fifth graders and sixth graders. But after a couple of days of those all day practices, it broke me. And I was crying to my dad. I said, Dad, I'm not doing this. Like, I can't. Like, I can barely handle 2-hour practice. And he's like, you don't have to play again next year, but you committed to this year. You will finish out this season. And so, just to give you, this is embarrassing to talk about, but I let the air out of my mom's tires to avoid going to practice. That is how badly I did not want to work, that I actually sabotaged my mom's vehicle. And it didn't work out because I think I punched a hole in the sidewall or something like that, and it didn't quite leak out fast enough. So I still went to practice, but I missed something I'd planned for the next day because we woke up that morning, tires were flat. I'm trying to change the tires as fast as I can. But anyways, like, so that, but just so people like that was my bad. I was soft. I was really, really soft. So I had to develop that hardness in my mind, and the discipline, the resilience. It came really, really slowly. And like you said, though, now that's a foundation of every aspect of my life. I think discipline is the foundation of excellence.
Oh man, I totally agree. And just to kind of follow your lead with embarrassing stories, I didn't have it either all the way up until when I was at my first duty station in the Army, and understanding a lot more about myself now on the backside of this. I wanted to quit the Army when I first got in. I grew up bullied relentlessly. When you join the Army and you get to particularly an infantry unit of guys who just came home from war, it's the same shit I had dealt with my whole life. And I was just over it. I was like, this fucking sucks. And, again, doing work on myself and realizing, mindset is everything, and it will hold you back from a lot of things. I can look at very specific instances from my career, understanding I had what it took to accomplish certain things physically. I didn't have mentally what I needed, right? It's kind of funny now because, at 40 years old, I know I have what it takes mentally to get through it, but I no longer have what it takes physically. And it's like that trade-off, right? It's just like, I missed that boat, but I realize now, so I can carry that with me moving forward in life and everything that I do.
Well, in the financial industry specifically, we focus so much on knowledge and learning more. And a lot of people think, well, I just don't know enough, or people that try to study their way to bypass discipline and bypass a resilient mindset. I mean, just look at the stuff that's going on in our world right now. There are people who are absolutely brilliant that are panicking out of their investments right now because they don't have the mindset to stick with it. And they're looking for the easy path. They want to avoid the discomfort of all this temporary uncertainty. And, we could look at any area of life and there's examples of this. But I think in my world especially, there's a focus on information to the point where it's destructive. Yeah. And we're flooded with data right now, Adam, but not all data is true information. And information certainly isn't knowledge. And just knowledge by itself is not wisdom. And I think a lot of us misplace or misunderstand wisdom, and we end up substituting that with just more information. And one thought I'll just give you is this idea of, when it comes to educating ourselves, when it comes to learning new skill sets, education without execution is merely entertainment. And
yes, dude.
And so many people worry about learning more, but they don't execute. They don't go out and do the difficult thing. And I think human beings, sometimes we add complexity to things. Like there's things in life that are relatively simple, but are still very hard. And when we're in those situations, whether it is, you're in basic, you're in a qual program, whatever you're doing, some of this is relatively simple. We try to add complexity to distance ourselves from the responsibility of acting. I see it all the time in finance. I saw it training soldiers. I saw it working with professional athletes. And it's a basic human fundamental shortcoming. I think that we make things more complicated unnecessarily because we just don't want to do the hard thing.
Dude, and there's so much to touch on there because we're cut from the same cloth and believe the same thing here. I, in fact, am guilty of this as recently as 2.5 years ago. Constantly learning, but never implementing anything that I learned. And if you fast forward, you can look at the LinkedIn post I put out today. I spent 13 hours building an entire intake system using Airtable and AI, and I've got an AI company also. So kind of also related to what you're talking about in the financial industry, there's a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of confusion. People panic. They feel like they don't know enough. But anyway, I really taught myself how to develop this system, leveraging a tool hands-on with the knowledge that I have and just taking some action. And I built this entire elaborate system that, people would pay lots of money for a dev to build for them. You know what I mean? And so, like, to your point, I think you're right. Constant learning and consumption of information is often confused for being disciplined when you're missing the other piece of that puzzle. To truly be disciplined, you have to take action on the things that you're learning.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think learning is important. One of my biggest regrets in my 20s is assuming that because I had finished college, I was no longer a student. And I've told my kids this, like, I'm committed to being a lifelong student, but you have to execute. You cannot learn your way to success. You have to do the things. And you can learn a lot by doing, but you can't do a lot just by learning. And I go back to just a little bit of my background. So I have a biochemistry degree, and one of the things that taught me, even though I don't really use it, is this idea of an experiment. And I think a lot of people have this fear of failure. And again, it goes back to that idea of adding complexity, where we want to postpone, we want to procrastinate starting, we want to procrastinate the execution. Number one, because it's hard. Number two, it exposes us to our weaknesses. Number three, we might fail. We might get judged and made fun of. But going back to biochemistry, this idea of an experiment, the only difference between failure and experiment was what you were willing to learn from it. And we still learned and we still studied. So we weren't running these tests willy-nilly. There's a lot of education, there's a lot of planning went into it. But at some point, you just had to execute. And things don't always go according to plan. General Eisenhower said, "No plan survives first contact with the enemy." And that was in chemistry, it's in life, but it's that idea that you have to plan, yes, you have to prepare, but at some point you just got to put your boots on the ground and go. And that was so valuable to me. And those are some of the mindsets that I'm trying to implement now professionally, to get people to actually execute on building their futures.
I love that, man. I'm curious, it's not a secret. You're a big investment guy. You've had quite a bit of success in that industry. What led you? I mean, you grew up in around the financial industry. So what compelled you to really pursue it, to building Veritas and all the work that you're doing? I'm always fascinated by this. When I finally started to get my shit together and decided to kind of go out on my own and become an entrepreneur, because I realized, like, I'm never going to have a corporate job again. I like to control my time and not be told what to do. Surprisingly, after 13 years in the Army, makes sense. But I really kind of got passionate about finance and until I got burned, because I went about it the wrong way. Went into the scummy side of insurance sales, selling final expense to seniors, the poorest 1/3 of Americans. Learned a lot about IULs, ULs, infinite banking concept, all that good stuff. Down the road, went to an Allstate agency because they promised Series 6, 63, and 7, which I was like, man, that's really cool. Had a couple experiences moving large sums of money for people, seeing how that all worked. Really kind of took an interest in it. But then when I got burned and got stiffed on commissions and promises weren't kind of carried out on, and also after studying for Series 7, I was like, this is not for me. This is way not for me. So I'm always curious. Are you a numbers guy? Were you always a numbers guy? What drew you to the financial industry, and what is the passion? Where does the passion come from?
So I was not always a numbers person. I think I always had that ability, but never growing up. I definitely did not step into that. Again, I was usually looking for the shortcut, the easy way. I think I have, um, probably above average intelligence, but it allowed me to be lazy. So I did not, I did not tap into the analytical side until I was actually in college and realized I had a gifting for it. But it was my dad who taught me so much about money and finances. He was the one that explained that you got to be careful because people don't make analytical decisions. They make emotional decisions, and then they
Yep.
justify those with analytical pieces. The numbers justify the decision that was already made emotionally, typically. So he's like, you're going to have to be careful that you don't live in the data because that's not where human beings make decisions. And so how I got into this wasn't so much because of the numbers. It was honestly a lot to do with my father. And long before Dave Ramsey, there's a guy named Larry Burkett, and he started this, I think, 10 or 12-week course, biblically based finances, but it was more of a Bible study than a money study. Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace course is biblically based still, but it's definitely more of a financial class. Anyways, my parents, my dad used to teach that in our community, in our church. And what I saw, Adam, growing up was when people start getting discipline and intentionality around money, the other areas of their life start falling into place. It's just amazing how it happens because money, kind of like your diet, it's a commitment that's 24/7. Now, anybody can go to the gym, you work out for an hour, but what do you do with those other 23 hours of the day? What are you eating? You sleep, like all those different things. So finance is much the same way. You can spend an hour doing all the right things, but what do you do with the other 23 hours of your day? You can make one bad financial decision and wipe out years of doing everything quote unquote correctly. So it is a discipline like no other. And what I saw, Adam, was when people started taking control of their finances instead of allowing finances to control them, the disciplines had a ripple effect into other areas of their life. Their marriages started getting better. They started taking better care of their health because their mindsets changed. But the flip side of that was also true. When people are consumed with stress and frustration around finances, well, maybe a lack of discipline, a lack of control. They're being run by their money instead of running their money. Um, that has a tendency to break down other areas of their life as well. And I saw that growing up. And so even though I got a degree in biochemistry, my plan was to go into medicine. Ultimately, going back to what you said about freedom and autonomy, I wanted to own a business. I didn't want a job that owned me.
Yeah.
And with medicine, you have to pay your dues. And I was getting ready to get married, and that's a whole other story. But what I realized my soon-to-be wife really wanted was a family. She's not a hotshot surgeon. So I took a break, and that's when I actually started training, doing some military contracts. But what it really came down to was I have a heart for helping people become better versions of themselves, for stepping into a more abundant life. And abundant, when I say abundance, I'm talking way more than finances.
Oh, I love
Early
this.
on,
I love abundance, man. I use this exercise a lot when I talk to vets. And I just give them this little piece. Just look around your computer desk. You have an abundance of things. You have more in value on your desk than a lot of people have in the world, right? That's perspective for you, and it's super powerful when you start looking at things like that. At least it was for me, because I didn't grow up with an awesome financial education. My parents are very much go to school, go to college, get a degree, or work a trade, save your money, retire at 72 years old on whatever you've banked. And there's a better way. We all know there's a better way, so I wasn't taught all of that. And I still struggle at 40 years old with money. You talk about paying attention to money and your life improves. It reminds me of Cody Sanchez's. Her mentor told her, "Money's a fickle bitch. If you don't pay attention, she'll fuck you. She'll leave you." And it's so true. Like, if you don't pay attention to everything about money and have that discipline, And that's what I use to start taking back control of my own finances, is just looking around. I got a $2,000 Apple computer sitting on my desk and another $300 ultra wide monitor that I do things on and a $2,000 phone. And it's like, can we keep going? Because there's more on this desk. And it's like, I have an abundance of things. I don't need anymore.
Well, just think about your phone. Like you had Steven Spokio on your show the other.
Sopko. Yeah,
Yeah,
Sopko.
I'm sorry. Yeah, he talked about watching the Challenger
Yeah.
fall, like tear itself apart in the sky. And you think about like when that incident happened, NASA, the entirety of NASA had less computing power available to them
Then what's in your phone?
than
In
an
your pocket.
11-year-old has on their iPhone.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and so there is abundance around us, but we have a tendency to focus on the negative and focus on what we don't have, rather than draw our attention to what the blessings that are already in our life. And so my thought process was, I'm going to use medicine, I'm going to use surgery to help restore people, to give them a sense of abundance, give them a sense of freedom to walk into a better version of themselves. And I was on a plane and I read a book, and I'll give you guys the title. It's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. It's written by a guy named Nick Murray. Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth. And I was like, this is the message I need to get out into the world. This is how I'm going to make my impact. So abundance, helping people create a life of freedom and autonomy and abundance, it looks different than I envisioned it in my 20s. But so finance is just my tool. And my heart has always been to coach people, to live a more intentional and purpose-filled life. I thought medicine was going to be my tool. It's just money is my tool. And like you just said a few minutes ago, Adam, money is a part of your life, whether you want it to be or not. So you don't get to choose, am I going to be a steward of my finances? The only choice you get is, am I going to be a good steward or a poor steward? And it can be confusing, be frustrating, but we can't bury our heads in the sand. We have to realize this is something that affects almost every area of my life. I've got to learn how to use it. And a lot of it comes from the 8 inches of space in between our ears.
Well, and I totally agree with that. If it wasn't, ones, tens, 50s, 20s, hundreds, whatever, it would be salt or gold or whatever. Like this concept that certain people, a growing, number of people in society have, capitalism's evil, money is the root of all evil, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, we live in a system where you can't avoid this. So you better learn how it works. You better learn, like you said, to be a good steward of it so that you can improve your life. Because just shitting on money and how much you hate money is not going to do you any favors. It's just going to perpetuate those negative thoughts constantly, and you're just going to spiral and continue to be stressed and just live a shitty life altogether, I think.
Yeah. And like you said, you can't get away from it. So either money is a great servant, but it's a terrible master. And if you don't learn how to make money serve you, and you just said, people look at money is the root of all evil. That verse in the Bible, it's in Matthew, it actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. What that means is money can't be the focus. Money is a means to an end. And when people start chasing money as the be all end all, really destructive things start happening. However, if you have a blueprint, if you have a goal for what you want your life to look like, and you can leverage money, when I say leverage, I'm not talking about through debt, but you can utilize money, you can wield money like a weapon to build a more intentional life, the life that you want. That's when really cool things start to happen. And like I said, it all comes back to discipline. You don't need to be an expert in finances to be a very good steward, but you do have to have resilience. You do have to have patience. You have to have discipline. You have to have perseverance. But their character qualities, they don't come from, college or from some secret educational society. Like, you can study all these things about money and finances, and that's great if you want to do that. But if you don't have the character, money will probably end up controlling you rather than you getting money to serve you.
Well, and I love how you're framing this, because it's a lot of, about a year ago, I was guilty of, everything that I'm building, trying to chase money, always chasing money. That was the focus. When I dropped that as my focus and just started focusing on helping people, it's amazing how much money finds you. It just finds you. It just comes out of nowhere. Just money would show up like for random different things, and it's like, holy shit! Like I stopped caring about money, and now money's here, and there's again back to the abundance. There's an abundance of it coming in because your focus isn't there. And I think to your point, you said it earlier, right? Like finance is just the tool that you use to help people live better lives. I think that's no matter what vertical you're in, whether that's some shipping company or whatever. If you really approach it with this philosophy of being a servant leader and just serving something bigger than yourself, I think all of that kind of just falls into place, like you said, and really kind of just helps you just live a better life.
And I think this is something you just said just sparked this in me. The tendency when it comes to finances specifically is if things aren't going well, we just swap out the tool. If you can't stay within your budget, we try a new budgeting app. If your 401k goes down, it starts looking like a 301k, we just swap out our mutual funds. But the thing is, we always change the tool, and we often miss the operator, the person that is utilizing that tool. And it makes me think of actually I was taking a handgun course years and years ago, and there's these two people in the course. They're nice people, and they're running these Wilson 1911s. They're probably like at the time like $4,500 pistols. I mean, so I don't know, probably $6,500 now, but sweet, just absolutely gorgeous pistols. And could not, I mean, just malfunction after malfunction. I was watching this with a buddy. I was like, this is hardly a Wilson combat commercial. But the idea was for them, they were swapping out mags, and they were like, oh, we'll try a different ammo. The problem was them. They were not operating the tool.
It's a grip. It's a grip thing. That's what they were doing.
Probably letting their thumbs ride on the slide. But you can't just change out the tool. If you can't hit a target with a Glock, getting a $4,500 Wilson isn't going to solve the problem unless you know how to operate the tool. And some of the best shooters, the best operators in the world, I mean, they might be able to outshoot a Glock, but they're going to be plenty efficient with a basic out-of-the-box Glock or M&P or something like that. But again, what we do is we try to get a more sophisticated tool. Like, oh, I need a better tool. We have to change how we operate the tool, and money is very much the same way. So we increase sophistication. We go with a more expensive brokerage firm. They have more research, whatever. But you, as the operator, you are the most important variable in that conversation and in that equation. I mean, and we can't just swap out the tool. We've got to learn how to use the tools at our disposal. I mean, you came out of the military where you get TSP. That is one of your biggest financial tools. It's really basic. Not a lot of diversification. There's a lot of drawbacks, but you know what? That's what you have. Can you still use that tool effectively? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it's you as the individual that has to become willing to, again, to persevere, to persist, to tolerate ambiguity, the crazy cycles that this the world goes through, and to sacrifice. It takes sacrifice. And it doesn't matter how special your 401k or your TSP is. At the end of the day, you have to be willing to sacrifice your present so your future self can benefit.
So true, man. So true. And to the gun analogy, there's fundamentals of shooting that transfer to every single pistol. Everything. It's the same thing with money. There's some fundamental principles, the foundational principles that you have to learn in order to manage your money, moving forward. And you built Veritas Wealth Management. You manage $500 million, according to research, impacting families' lives. That seems to me like that would come with a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, a lot of just unnecessary stuff that I don't want. How do you handle that, and how did you grow to managing that kind of money? What is that like for you?
Well, it is a blessing and an honor because we work with amazing families all over the U.S., but there is a lot of pressure. And so I try to take really good care of myself. And I meet a lot of people, Adam, who spend their 30s and 40s sacrificing their health and their relationships to build wealth. And then I meet them when they're in their 60s and they have more wealth than they know what to do with. And they're trying to spend their wealth to buy back their health and their relationships. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I've always felt that those things have to be built together in tandem. But also because of the responsibility I have, a fiduciary for all these families, that I have a responsibility to show up my best every single day, because I might do this every day, help people transition to retirement, plan what they're retiring to, and all the conversations around that. We just had a guy retire a couple weeks ago from corrections. The guy did 5,000 hours of overtime last 2 years, just overtime in prison.
So much overtime.
Yeah, that's just overtime.
Gosh.
Working in a prison. So thinking about giving him freedom from that, because the burnout factor is just so high in that type of job. So I owe it to him. I owe it to people like you. I owe it to the people that I work with to be at my best every single day. So I strive very, very hard to make sure that I show up with excellence, and it starts with my morning. I spend time every morning reading and praying, and I do a gratitude list every single morning. I get in the gym. I have a whole thing. I don't know how much time you want to get into that, but the idea
all of
is,
this is great, man, because these ad nauseum, over 120 plus episodes at this point, we talk about these things, right? Physical. There's an acronym to go into the military. You may be familiar with it. MEPS, Military Entry Processing Station. There should be a MEPS to get out, and it's 5 areas of your life that you need to really focus on and get right in order to have a successful transition: mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual. You're literally hitting on all 5 of those things in this conversation, from your discipline practice every single morning, to waking up and reading and praying, to a gratitude practice, which is something that I give to veterans who reach out to me who are struggling. I have my own. First thing in the morning when I wake up, 5 things out loud I'm grateful for. It doesn't matter what they are. I'm grateful I have 2 dogs. I'm grateful I have 2 legs. I'm grateful I woke up this morning. Whatever. It's just an incredible start to your day. It's hard to have a bad day after that, right? The mindfulness, the grounding, the breath work, all that stuff, all of these things you're touching on, and it all roots itself in what we started the conversation with is discipline. It's just discipline to build a routine, follow that routine. It's amazing, man. I love that. It seems like all the successful people, and whether you consider yourself successful or not, people like me out here look up to somebody like you managing $500 million in portfolio. That's a lot of, to me, that's success, right? Like, that's just success. There's no other way that I can view that. And so I know how you got there. You have a very strong sense of spirituality. You take care of your mental, emotional, and physical health, and I'm sure you have a robust social circle.
and that's those are all crucial, critical pieces. And when I first started, you asked, how did I grow this? If I'm so blessed, Adam, if you would have told me 17, 18 years ago when I started where this would be right now, I don't think I could have imagined it. So I started the first couple of years going through this, as I was trying to build this. I started basically in my garage, and started from scratch. And shortly after I got licensed, the financial crisis hit, and I mean, it was a rough time, and a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, just frankly, a lot of rejection. I mean, just think about it. If, some 28-year-old kid comes up to you and says, like, hey, I have no background in finance other than growing up in it, and I've got a degree in biochemistry, and the whole world seems like it's melting down right now. How would you like to trust your family's financial security to me? That conversation didn't go very well very often. So
welcome to becoming an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah. So somebody asked me in a podcast, like, how many times do you think you've been rejected? So I wasn't sure. I actually had to go back, and I looked at some of my call logs and stuff like that. About 7 at the time. This is a couple of years ago, actually, or a year or so ago. But at the time, it was over 75,000 rejections.
But
75.
how many clients did you get out of that? Because there's that age old saying in entrepreneurship and sales, 100 no's to get one yes. So I feel like if you got 75,000 no's, you at least got 7,500 yeses.
Actually, fewer than that, because one of the things I've also learned is to be extremely particular about the types of people we're working with. And again, this kind of goes back to, do you want to own a business, or do you want a business that owns you? And you go back to the pressure. A lot of people in my industry are inundated by reactive clients, and you can't push a rope, So you you look for people that are proactive, because if they are reactive, you're not going to be able to plan anything for the future. You're going to spend all your time putting out fires for today. And so I've been very, very picky. And now the folks that work with me, we're all very, very select about who we work with, because we want people who are willing to develop those character qualities. Adam, everybody says they want to be wealthy. Everybody wants to be a place of financial freedom. Very few people are actually willing to do the work to get there. So we select for those types of people, which means that funnel becomes even tighter. So we have total. We work with less than 1,000 families across the U.S.
Wow.
So when people sit down with us, we're interviewing them much more than they're interviewing us, and we're nice about it. But we're not like, oh, you didn't make the cut. This isn't like a selection process. They're not out there humping rucks over mountains, and we're timing them on push-ups and everything. We should. That would actually be fun. But
you find out who's really committed.
I know. Yeah. How bad do you want this?
Right.
Keep puking. We'll talk. But we just very, very selective. So and that 75,000 rejections, that was me personally. That's not even my team. And when I started, there was no team. I was the chief everything officer. Anyways, I'm rambling, but no, it's such a blessing. And when the pressure's on, I just have to remind myself that I believe God has placed me in this moment on earth at this time to be there for that family. Maybe that woman who just lost her husband, or that I've got an ex-Marine who just got diagnosed with dementia in his early 60s. And some of that is going back to some of the trauma that he suffered. And, sitting down with somebody at a pivotal moment in their life. And yeah, I might have a lot of those conversations, but for them, that might be the most impactful and trying conversations that they'll have in their life. I've got to show up with excellence. So I owe it to people to be at my best every single day. And it's a privilege. It's an honor. Yes, there's pressure with it. But Adam, you and I, we don't get to impact a lot of people's lives by being average and by just putzing around. We have to be intentional. We have to be purposeful, especially when we're asking other people to do those things. Mm-hmm. They have to see it in us. They have to be able to look at Adam Peters and say, you know what? There's something in that man that I want. And if he's telling me this is what I've got to do and I see him doing it, then I'm going to chase after it.
Oh, and it's so true, man.
Because he knows what he's talking about. Yeah.
It's so true, because as I've built everything, it becomes more and more of a reality. I really hate it, but people will reach out. I'm surprised with so many followers that you answered my DM, or you made time in your calendar to meet with me for 30 minutes and have a conversation. I'm like, man, I'm just a normal human. Like, the stuff I talk to you guys about, I practice what I preach. Like, I'm approachable. I want to be approachable because I'm here to help as many people as I possibly can. And I really like kind of what we just talked about with you talking about being selective with clients. And I think this is, I don't know, for me personally, this is an awesome lesson, just because when I started everything that I'm doing, I started this podcast particularly with the idea that the path back to purpose for veterans was entrepreneurship. And I very much still believe that. It's just through collecting data and over 20 episodes or so, realizing the big issue we face is in the transition and how we're being taught to get out. So that pivots kind of the main objective of the show or whatever. But not being afraid to fire clients, I think, is incredibly important. I really do. I think being selective is the key to building a successful business, because in my opinion, it shows you're not just focused on the bottom line and generating revenue. You're truly focused on quality clients. And I love that you're talking about, you don't want reactive clients. we don't get political here, but if you just pay attention to, everybody seems to hate Trump and tariffs, and everybody's an expert on tariffs, and then trade deals go through and fucking China gets screwed, and I think it's great. Then he goes to the Middle East and he secures $10 trillion that's coming back into the economy. Yet everybody is still riding his fucking ass, talking about he's blowing the fucking world trade up, and the market's going to do this, that, and the other. And it's like, how in the fuck can the market go down? He told you to buy 6 months ago because he knew he was going to go work out some deals and bring $10 trillion back to this economy. You probably should have bought when it was low.
Well, what you just said was, I'm chuckling because you talk about everybody's an expert in tariffs. Like, there's people who are planning out the next 10 years of their life based on the news of tariffs today. And these people couldn't even explain what a tariff was 6 weeks ago. And maybe they can't now, but I'm like, this is the focus of your life. And we could go, this could be a whole show, but so many people focus on what they can't control.
Yes,
tariffs,
that's
inflation.
The large point.
Yeah. They focus on what they can't control. They miss the opportunity to influence the things that they can control. And I don't care who you voted for, what you think about Trump, what you thought about Biden, whatever. The biggest variable to somebody's success is going to be their own actions and decisions, the choices they make. Like, what happens in your house is way more important than what goes on in the White House. Yes, it matters, but you can't control it. And other than voting, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it. But so many people point fingers and blame others. And yes, bad things happen in the world. Don't get me wrong. But where you're at in your life, it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. And that's the message that we've got to get out there, that you are getting out there. I'm getting out there, that we have to be in the driver's seat of our own life. And too many people are sitting on the sidelines. They're waiting for permission to be invited in, and they're sitting in the passenger seat. And we got to get those folks to move over and drive.
Yeah, man, you're the arbiter of your own destiny for sure. Like, it's if you want to bitch about what's going on in the world and all the shit you can't control, maybe you should start by looking in the mirror, because that's the person you need to bitch to and make some changes at first and foremost. And I'm with you, man. Politics is all two sides of the same coin. I don't give a shit who's in office or who you voted for or whatever. Like you said, man, all you can really do is vote, and you should be concerned about what's going on inside your own house more than what's going on outside in the world, because that's what you can control.
And you even mentioned on, like, from a market timing standpoint, like, there's a Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. It's never too late to start doing the right thing. But, people are so worried about, well, what's the market going to do? And I don't want to go off too much of a tangent here, but it's like, who cares about where the market's going to be in 10 days or in 10 minutes? A lot of people can't think 10 minutes ahead. But 10 years from now, we're going to look back at prices today and drool. So this isn't about how much money is your portfolio going to make this year. It's about how much income can your investments produce over your lifetime. That has nothing to do with temporary market movements. Look past that. Look at what you're building for the future, and just ignore the noise for today. Because, again, reactive versus proactive. Are you reacting to the economic weather around you, or are you building a financial house that is going to be protecting you and your family potentially for generations? I'd rather be doing the latter.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to take the last few minutes while we wrap up here to kind of venture into something that I'm kind of curious about. And you're a finance guy managing a lot of money. Where do you stand with crypto, and what do you see crypto? Do you see that as potentially a good investment vehicle long term? Like, what are you seeing with that? What are your stance on that? I'm genuinely asking for an education. A couple of years ago, PiCoin, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's kind of a cool thing. Basically, I got to start mining this stuff for free on my phone, and I've been with them as they've developed their network. And now, moral of the story is I've got over 2,500 PiCoins that are on mainnet now, and they're actually worth $3,000 or $4,000 at this point, which is, I didn't have to do anything. I just had to push a button once a day to go mine some coin. And so it's kind of set me down this path. I've seen a lot of ads on social media. I know Barstool Sports firms and what's his name are big into, pushing crypto on people. Crypto.com has giant advertising campaigns going on right now. There's always talk about the halvening and Bitcoin, and I don't understand any of it. So I'm just curious, like, what's your take on crypto? Is it something that we should pay attention to? Can we invest in it? Should we invest in it? Like, what's your stand?
Whew, okay. Can of
Sorry,
worms
man.
has been
I'm
opened.
sorry.
No, that's good. Number one, I don't believe crypto is an investment at all. Whether it's good, bad, or I don't believe it's an investment because it doesn't produce anything.
Right.
So if I buy a piece of real estate or if I buy companies, and I'm saying buying companies, talking about, people talk about the stock market. Just to remind people, when you're investing through TSP, you're in the C or the S of the I fund. You're not investing in the market. You're investing
You're
through the
buying
market.
a part
You're
of the company.
buying actual companies, brick and mortar companies. Like, look around your desk or look around your car if you're driving, right? Like, you'll see products made by these companies. You're buying companies. In order for that company to make you money, you don't have to sell it. You just live off the earnings they produce. The metaphor that we give people, try to make this short and sweet, but it's like building or planting an orchard. Throughout our careers, we plant this orchard, and the goal is not how much money it's worth at any given day, because that only matters if I chop down my trees and I sell them. If I curate this orchard that's large enough and abundant enough that I don't have to sell the trees, I just live off the fruit that they produce. I don't actually have to sell off my companies. I live off the earnings. And through mutual funds or through TSP, you can own literally thousands of companies across the globe. Some of the best companies that have ever graced this earth. Okay, so, and again, with real estate too, you buy an apartment. You don't have to, in order to make money, you don't have to sell off the doors and windows and things like that. You collect the rent. Right. With crypto, with most forms of crypto, there's no production. The only way to make money is to buy at a lower price and sell it at a higher price. Gold, a lot of commodities, the same thing. But you're a price speculator. Now, it doesn't mean you can't make money doing that. But I mean, you can make money in Vegas too. It's just not a great idea, and most people lose.
It's a terrible idea.
So we just have to make sure that we're really clear on what we're doing. We're speculating, and it's not true investing. Yes, you can make money, but I would caution people to think, why are you even looking at this? Why? It kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, this idea of discipline and things like, are you trying to find an easier way? So you're ignoring what's always worked to try to guess what might work best next. And I can show, there's a lot of tools out there that have worked for generations. There's a lot of things out there that have always worked. I'm not saying crypto can't make you money. I'm just saying it's really early, and I guess I would caution people to even think about, how often do you use it? Like, when was the last time you bought groceries with Bitcoin? No. or paid your mortgage or things like that? So people have told me, this is the wave of the future, and it's going to change everything, just like the internet changed everything. And yeah, but even when we had the old dial-up modems, like, we still use the internet. Nobody uses crypto. It might happen. I'm not, again, this is not a market call. I'm just saying it's been around for 15 years. Nobody really uses it in their day-to-day life. And even with the internet, though, which we can all say it changed our lives, right? But think about the mid-90s, a lot of these internet commerce companies started coming up. Internet commerce, buying and selling on the internet, changed the way we buy and sell things. Adam, I can buy all kinds of stuff and I never have to see anybody. It's amazing. I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but there's a company out there, you can buy suppressors. They will have them delivered to your door. It's the whole process you can do, other than sending back some fingerprint cards, you can do online. It's crazy. I love it. I love not having to go into a store and shop.
We're going to have to talk after this recording's over, because I want to know what that site is.
Yeah. But a buddy of mine did it, and I'm like, that's not right. It's going to be a black van that comes and picks you up and hauls you away. Right. I'm going to give it a few months. If no government agency has picked you up, then I'm going to try it. But no, it's crazy that what we can do on the internet. But think about those early companies. People say, well, crypto is the pioneer. Well, pioneers also take most of the arrows. Most of the companies, the internet commerce companies that started in the mid to late 1990s, no longer exist. They paved the way for the companies now. But it's not like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's like looking for a needle in a stack of needles. So all that to say, if you want to explore Bitcoin or crypto, it doesn't matter what it is, like just be really honest with yourself that it is speculative. Doesn't mean you can't make money, but it's not a true investment. It's not proven. And my encouragement to be never have enough money in that you couldn't lose it all and still hit all your financial goals. So I mean, just the numbers you mentioned, Adam, like yeah, if that really takes off, that could be something. But
Mhm.
if you were say if you were to burn it in your driveway, which you can't really do with crypto, but that's just a phrase I use. If you were to burn it in your driveway, it wouldn't really change the rest of your life. It might ruin your day or your week. And I think that's probably the balance people should have. Just make sure that the entertainment value that you get from speculating doesn't weave its way into the discipline and perseverance that you need for your long-term finances. So use the tools of always work to build your financial house. If you want to have some fun speculating, I mean honestly, it's probably, cheaper to do some crypto trading online than it is to go to Vegas. So if that works for you, if that scratches the itch, great. But I just think it's important that we're honest about what we're doing and why. Does that help
That's
answer that?
absolutely, man. That's basically the take that I've had. I've noticed that it's speculative, right? I know there are certain entities out there that will allow you to use Bitcoin to pay for things. I see ATMs, Bitcoin exchange ATMs. Living here in Florida, having a medical card, and being a huge proponent of cannabis use and plant medicine in general, you can pay with Bitcoin at the dispensary to get your weed, right? I think as a business, that's a terrible idea. I understand why they do it, the whole federal regulation, all cash business type of thing. But the speculation, I mean, like you've watched dispensaries lose tens of thousands of dollars in a day because Bitcoin fluctuates so much. You know what I mean? Like I just don't. We have very much the same philosophy. Other than those Picoin that I just mined for free because I got an invite to an app, I don't invest in crypto. I don't own a single Bitcoin or a single piece of a Bitcoin at this point. Nothing. I just don't think it's just not for me. I don't understand the blockchain and crypto, and I'm a kind of a tech guy, which kind of leads me to my next question. I'm a big AI guy. I think AI is the next big revolution that our society is facing, and it's going to fundamentally change a lot of things, particularly with as fast as it's evolving and how powerful it is. How do you feel about AI and different, systems for investing or trading or any of this stuff? I know you have opinions. I'm fairly certain you're probably old school and like, I'd probably stay away from that. However, like AI is getting more powerful. Is there a world in which you could see leveraging AI to help you be more disciplined and take back more control of your finances? If so, what does that look like?
So number one, I mean you're absolutely right. AI is changing the world.
That's why I
And
started an AI company.
yeah, and,
Like,
and and you can't get around that. It is amazing. It's also a little creepy. I am not very tech savvy, and that this is just a conversation we had last week with my team. Like we've got to explore this more. We've got some younger people that we've brought on, and because I think there are opportunities that we're missing. And the companies we're investing in again through mutual funds. We don't do individual stocks for a myriad of reasons, but um, I mean you talk about we talked a little bit about the just how technology has changed, and you've got this $300 monitor that would have cost more than a car when we were teenagers, and with horrible resolution, like everything would have been fuzzy, and it would have weighed 800 pounds, and now you go to Walmart, you buy this $300 monitor that looks amazing, and it takes 2 seconds to set up, and you don't need a college degree or hire somebody to come do it, which used to be the case. Like it was like a Bible sized instruction manual to set up this TV that barely worked. Anyways, technology allows companies to be more profitable, to be able to expand margins without having to dramatically increase price. I mean, I see AI is doing some amazing things from an investing standpoint. I think it can help with research and things like that. Some of the portfolio managers that we partner with are using it. It will never be a substitution for discipline, for patience, for perseverance, for grit. Um, so I just, again, kind of going back to the Bitcoin thing, like why, or the crypto, like if somebody is looking at that, are they looking for a shortcut or enhancement? Now, if you already have the grit, determination, all those different things, can AI help? Possibly. Could it save time? Sure. But just make sure that you're not trying to replace those character qualities with technology, because that does not work in investing. I'm just going to use a real quick gym analogy. Like, just look at these, some of these machines out there, like $40,000, $50,000 exercise machines. They have biometric scanners, all these different things. They can test your blood pressure and your heart rate variability, all these things to put you in the optimal state while you're working out. The most in shape people in your gym are over there in the squat rack. They're over on the
That's me.
deadlifting
Yep.
platform.
I love the shitty, just rusted weights and just no air conditioning in a
Yep.
gym. My favorite gyms were when I was on deployment in Iraq and Afghanistan. Best gyms ever. Just nothing to it but to do it, man. Just
Yep.
go pick up the heavy shit and put it back down. No
And
fancy crap.
I'm not saying technology can't help. I'm just saying they will never be a substitute from just getting bloody and sweaty and going and putting in the work. And the same thing goes with investing. So I am really curious to see what AI does. I think it will help companies be even more profitable, which, if you own those companies, if you own small pieces of those companies, you will be more profitable. But just making sure that we're not looking to replace our own character deficiencies with a tool, because
Well,
that
see,
it won't work.
yeah, we're of the same philosophy, and I am a CTO of Offset Technologies. Partner Tyler Nelson, another former Ranger, invited me in to really build this company because we look at it the same way. Always have a human in the loop, no matter what system we're developing for somebody. And then also understanding that AI is a tool to be leveraged. You have to understand how to leverage it. It doesn't replace anything. In fact, people who know how to use it are the people that are going to replace people who refuse or
Yeah.
just fail to adopt it. I'm a firm believer in that. And again, like I said at the beginning of this, like, it's here. It's as dumb as it's ever going to be. You might as well embrace it because it is fundamentally going to change how society operates. Period. End of story. And so I could see it doing a lot of trading analysis. I think, like, kind of confirming the research that you're doing, maybe doing a little bit deeper dive. I'm not well versed in how to do any of that stuff, so probably not the best guy to set up a system like that or build a system. But I see these solutions popping up on the internet via YouTube. People carving a niche in the AI and automation space, in the finance space, because there are a lot of people out there that are undisciplined and don't have those things, those tangibles to they are looking for the shortcut, and a lot of people are going to take a lot of advantage of those people and make a lot of money. It's sad. It's how it works. And people are dumb enough to fall for it. So I'm glad that you gave us your opinion, brother. We killed the hour quick, and I really appreciate all the conversation. Let's wrap this up. I want you to tell everybody how they can find you, get your book, reach out to you if they want to, have you manage their portfolios or get more information on how they can straighten some things out. And I want you to give kind of the top 3 tools that you would, kind of turn vets onto getting out so that they are retiring to something instead of from something.
Well, if I can answer the second question first, and just think about it through this lens, like nobody would knowingly buy a house that was built without a blueprint. But so often we plan our futures without one. There's no set of plans connecting where I am today with where I want to be. And a lot of times people can view retirement like a finish line. And the problem with that is there might be a lot of intentionality building up to that. But then when they retire, they're just, again, retiring from the military, you put in your 20 years, you might be 40 years old, and it's really easy to lose that intentionality and just like, I'm just ready to get out. And you're more focused about what you've left than what you're pursuing. And so I think having that mindset of, okay, you just exited the military, whether it's you've been in for 10 years or 30 years, but what do you want your life to look like 10 or 30 years from now? Like, what do you want your house to feel like when you step in? And a lot of people don't have that vision. They're trying to build their life without a vision for what they even want to look like. It's like trying to build a house and you have no idea what you're trying to put together. You're just slapping together, boards and plywood, and you wonder why it ends up looking like this mess. It's because there's not enough purpose and intention. So number one, get clear about what you want your life to look like. Number two, I would say this is more of a practice than a tool, but eliminate debt ruthlessly. The fewer liabilities you have when you exit the military, the more freedom and flexibility you'll have. You can be more picky about that next job. You can be more picky about next career. You can do something like Adam and I have done, where we started businesses from scratch that don't pay a lot of money early on. It's like pushing a car.
This is how much I've made.
Yeah, it's like pushing a car. So much effort and energy is just to get those tires to budge. Once you get it rolling, you can start picking up some momentum. But that's where people quit in those early years. If you're trying to pay off debt, which is really just it's stealing money from your future to pay off your past. It's really, really hard to get momentum, and you limit your choices. So ruthlessly eliminate debt. Not manage it. We don't want to manage it. We want to get rid of it. And if you can put yourself in a position to leave the military debt free, it's amazing. If you still have a mortgage, that's a little bit more acceptable, but debt is the one of the number one killers of financial freedom.
You're particularly looking at 33% interest rates on credit cards. Just fucking ridiculous, man. It's like, why would you want to pay that on your debt? Like, and then the fallacy that they have their little calculators. You need to make this minimum payment, but nobody pays attention to the fine print. You'll pay this off in 27 years if you just keep making the minimum payment. It's like, come on, guys. Like, you're compound interest is now working against you on that credit card debt. And you want compound interest to work for you in your fucking bank account and your investments.
And financial independence is a marathon. It doesn't happen quickly. We're not trying to, nothing we've talked about today, Adam, is about getting rich quick. It's about building wealth slowly and sustainably. And you don't want to fill a rucksack full of bricks on your financial marathon. And that's what debt is. It slows you down and makes everything you do so much harder. Can you still make it? Maybe. But there's way more people broke down on the side of their financial path because they were overladen with debt than people who actually made it still carrying that rucksack full of bricks. So eliminate debt. The other thing that I would say from a tool standpoint, this is something that we can help with, is so have a vision of where you're going, but attach some measurables to that. Because things that measured get done. We've got a tool, we call it Know Your Retirement Number. It allows people to take some of their retirement, their financial independence, and create some clarity in what is it going to take. How much money will they need invested to live comfortably without a paycheck? And a lot of people don't know it. They don't have a target. It's really hard to hit a target that you've not identified. So we've got a tool to help people do that. And I can provide that link, and you can put it in the show notes. And then where to find us, veritasalaska.com. We work with people all over the U.S. It's just we were founded here in Alaska, so we keep it in the URL because it's got some cachet to it. So veritasalaska.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We're veritas.alaska. And we're happy to help if people want to be more intentional about their financial future, to live on purpose, pursuing their future, not running from their past.
I love it, man. Chad, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Chad Hufford. Please reach out to Chad if you want to retire to something and not from something. I think that's the greatest quote we've ever had on this show, and it makes a whole lot of sense. I wish I would have had somebody reframe the vision of retirement for myself. So particularly when I was 30 years old, because retirement at 30 is fucking weird. It's really weird. And I really just appreciate you being here. I appreciate all the great information, and we'll see everybody next week with another awesome episode. Take care, everybody.